digitization at the bottom of the pyramid. What that is, we will get to in a second. But I first thought I'll help you set the context of what these two companies that we are talking to does, right? Srijit said, Rajesh, Mr. Rajesh is the managing director of Perfetti. What do they do? Hey, if you had heard of Happy Valley, Center Fresh, Happy Day, right? So tremendous, sugary stuff in the mouth that I've enjoyed many times as well. So that is what they do. Next, we have Sapna as part of, she is the Chief Operations Officer at MapMyIndia. What do they do is a geospatial, data technology. Basically, they're helping map. It is not just 2D, it is also in 3D for us to be able to, um, do geotagging, do, what Uber does, that kind of work. Without much ado, I will get into the topic of today, right, which is digitization at the bottom of the pyramid. What do we mean by the bottom of the pyramid, right? I mean, you've heard digitization. Enterprise is doing a lot of digitization. They talk about, BOPIS, which is, buy online, pick up in store. Hey, you can buy your car, you can model your car. That is at the top of the pyramid that we see in marketing. In the middle of the pyramid, also, there is a lot of digitization, right? There is automated warehouses, just in time. A lot of those also, to a large extent, supply chain planning. A lot of those also at the middle of the pyramid have been digitized. But what about bottom of the pyramid, right? Whether it is a transporter who's trying to move the equipment, move your product to a truck. I mean, does he have a platform to raise an invoice online, or is it still done through faxes, emails, phone calls? A small retail, I mean, are they able to, show you proof of delivery or accept a delivery and do what is called as a, electronic proof of delivery? Right? That is what we mean, for example, at the bottom of, the pyramid. So let us go to Mr. Rajesh and ask his thoughts. Mr. Rajesh, for example, I know you do a big push into the rural area. What are some initiatives you've launched, and what are some of the responses that you've been getting so far?
Sure. Thanks, Badri, and good afternoon, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure and privilege being with all of you on this session, and hi, Sapna, as well. So if you look at it, India is a huge country, of course, and with over 700,000 villages, and they contribute to 65 to 70% of the country in terms of population. So clearly, it's a segment that you cannot ignore. And obviously, there are a lot of challenges, but I also would like to think that there are a lot of opportunities as well. So before I answer the question in terms of what we do, if I were to just look at some of the challenges that are there, of course, is the sheer scale and dispersion of the villages across the country. That's a challenge. Related to it, poor infrastructure, which of course is getting slightly better. The trickling down of technology, again, we are seeing some progress there, but that still continues to be a challenge. And if you look at it, there is also this challenge of high cost of distribution and high time taken for distribution. So by the time the product from the factories in the city reaches the village right at the end, there is a cost attached to it and there is a time, right? And I think some of the other challenges are also coming around the space of, say, for example, warehouse infrastructure. So, you can't directly reach it to so many thousand outlets, but where do you keep these products in the interim in terms of certain areas where you could store them, etc. So these are some of the challenges. But having said that, I think all is not doom and gloom. There are clearly certain opportunities as well. And if you look at it, I think the consumer in rural areas are becoming more literate. They are also having money to spend thanks to, I think, consistent good monsoon over the last few years. So the disposable income has gone up. And therefore, they are actually seeking out brands. They are also aspirational. So that's, I think, good news to consumer product companies. Not just consumer product companies, actually any branded product companies, because there is a demand being generated from them. I think the government is doing a lot of stuff also, right? In fact, I was recently reading about this program called Rurban, which is a combination of rural and urban, which is really about identifying clusters of settlement and then saying, basis socio-economic opportunities, and then really, uh, trying to push them up into moving from rural to urban. So there is like a mid space which exists, and I think that's a nice segue to get people to move into the urban part of this thing. Technology is definitely becoming more and more relevant and being percolating down. So I think that's just a landscape in terms of what are some of the good things that are happening. Now, if I deep dive down one level to what we are doing as a company, for us, nearly 1/3 of the business comes from the rural markets, and we cover. You showed a number. We cover about 4 million outlets indirectly, but in the rural areas, we cover directly about 400,000 outlets. So we are indeed, percolating down, and I think brands like Center Fresh and Center Fruit and Alpenliebe are pretty much available all across. So the way we work is we have a hub and spoke model where we keep super stockists and they sell to the sub stockists. So there's like a hub, and there is a spoke, and there are multiple spokes around each hub. So that's the way we've been operating. However, we understand, like I mentioned, there is a cost to distribution and there is a time to distribution. So what we are now doing is looking for alternate mechanisms. So for example, we partner with Elastic Run, who are a rural coverage aggregator. So what Elastic Run does is it's got its own sales force. They go to shops with their handheld. They take orders for Perfetti, for Marico, for Ricket, for Nestle. And then they have warehouses which are common warehouses where all the products are stored. And then they distribute it through that channel to their stores. Right. So it's a way of putting the things together, piggybacking on the existing infrastructure so that the cost then gets distributed. Now, we piloted with them in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh fairly successfully, and we are now rolling it out into the south as well. That's one example. And I'll just give one more example, and then we can move on to the next one. The other interesting thing, and I talked about government interventions, is in Haryana, for example, the Haryana Agro Industries Corporation has actually approached us and said they're going to open 1,000 stores, right, which are going to be multi-brand stores across the state of Haryana. And they have told us, can you supply your products to our distribution centers so that we can then take your products from there and supply to the consumers who want it in the rural markets, and not just for us, but for a bunch of companies. So I think there are quite a few opportunities available. It's a question of really identifying the right partner, and the same partner may not be relevant to all states in the country, and making sure that we are able to customize our offering such that it's a win-win solution for everybody.
Very, very interesting. I know you also partnered or looking to partner with Ferns and Petals also, right? How has that been working out for you?
See, Ferns and Petals actually is a partnership at the other end of the spectrum, which is really in the e-commerce. So, what we are doing is we are taking baby steps in e-commerce, and there clearly, we are looking for partners like Ferns and Petals, for example, with whom we can partner and then reach our products to consumers' homes. But if I were to take a leaf out of that question and say, from a digital perspective, what are the things that we could do, to tap into this segment? One of the things, and I'm sure Sapna will relate to it very well, is we do geotagging of our rural outlets, right? So basis lat long, we have geotagged all our outlets. So what happens is we get real-time data on what kind of products are being sold, who is buying it, how much, and so on and so forth. And that helps us with a little bit of real-time decision making in terms of how we go about tapping into the rural opportunity. So that's one example of it. The other example is we have again partnered with a company called Brand Idea, right? So what they do is they cluster villages based on a whole set of parameters in terms of red, green, amber, as to the potential of those villages. So we are working with them. So you take any district in India, you get a map of the villages with dots which are red, green, or amber. So obviously we go after the green dots first because they are the lower hanging fruits in terms of which villages, what is the best way to cover them in the most efficient and effective manner, and so on and so forth. So I think technology is really, really playing a very, very big role in helping connect the bottom of the pyramid, so to speak, with manufacturers like this.
Brilliant. That's a good segue for us to listen to what Sapna has to say. Well, so Sapna, I mean, what is your perspective of bottom of the pyramid for logistics?
Got it. So first of all, really thanks, Rajesh, the way you have set the context from the perspective of geotagging, information, gap analysis, coverage, ensuring connectivity, and so on. So, I mean, taking from there, so what's ultimately happening is we are doing more and more digitalization. So, but this is not something that we have started doing now. I mean, digitalization has been happening for last, decades, many decades. Uh, what has changed over a period of time is earlier we used to talk about process automations. Now, when it comes to digitalization, we need to do that for decision making. We need to do that for planning, to have transparency, to have more information, let's say information at the click of a button. And, you know, now digitalization, what is there at the bottom of the pyramid from the logistics perspective, what we feel is, coming from the technology space, coming from the enablement space, what we feel is that at the bottom of the pyramid sits information, the data to enable data-driven decision making, data to enable optimized optimization in your entire, let's say, in logistics or other operations. And what kind of information are we talking about? We are talking about, I mean, if we talk about MapMyIndia, MapMyIndia says, uh, our vision is to build the four-dimensional time and space map, a real-time digital twin of the world, uh, which includes, definitely it includes both urban and rural geographies. If we talk about India, we are today, we have mapped all 6 lakh, I think now it's 7 lakhs villages in the country. 6 million road kilometers are fully captured, including both, kacha roads, pakka roads, uh, along with multiple attributes in terms of connectivity. Which villages are connected with which highways, which roads, via which mode of transport. You know, all this set of information we feel sits at the bottom of the pyramid, and it helps you with both cost and time factors that drive businesses today. You need to be cost effective. You need to be able to meet the timelines. So both these things can be achieved by having a good set of information right in front of you. So be it for optimizing your route, allocation of, let's say, allotment of transporter or individual vehicles, or even driver safety of your driver, geotagging, geofencing, getting transparency into violations that are happening to certain rule sets, various validations, checking for pilferages. All this can be enabled through location intelligence or location based artificial intelligence tools that we are talking about. And and we're talking about uh, not just optimization, we are also talking about the expansion here. So once you optimize, you're able to expand. And in order to expand, you need to understand your gaps. You need to understand what your current coverage is. What are the areas which are still being uncovered? So Rajesh very nicely talked about having that red, amber, green kind of a scenario. So having that at a village level, definitely, that's one state. But having that right at the doorstep level, that's where the information today is available, and that's where we can actually reach at. So broadly speaking, I feel that information sits at the bottom of the pyramid, and this information can be used for both knowing where your assets are, to optimizing the reach to these assets, and basically are trying to put both demand and supply side closer to each other.
Okay, got it. Very interesting. So, get this right, geotagging of both the supply and the demand side. 6 million kilometers is just phenomenal. Taking, switching to the, I understand that you are enabling also multimodal logistics, right? I mean, there's question or two questions actually. One is, hey, how are you enabling it? More importantly, is the ecosystem adopting it? Without adoption, hey, then it becomes an academic exercise.
Very well said, Badri. So you're right, we are on the path of multimodal logistics, providing technology for the multimodal logistics. Let me first talk about why that's important and why that's relevant. So we all know that cost of logistics in India is about 14 to 15% of our GDP, which is very, very high as compared to about 7 to 8% in case of the Western world. So, and when you analyze why is it so high, it is so high because today still 70% of our logistics operations are by road. Plus, there is very inadequate transportation connectivity, which causes congestion in movement of commodities as well. And then you have to deal with the complex regulatory processes too. Now, in order to deal with all these challenges which do exist in the present scenario, clearly multimodal logistics is the answer. One, we truly believe that the overall cost of logistics reduces if we are able to optimally use multiple modes of transport and not just rely on the road as a as a mode. But in order to do that, you need to have the technology in place. You need to be able to do analysis. You need to be able to do planning. You need to be able to select the choice of transport. You need to be able to define the constraints in terms of, when latest what is the time which is available with you in order to make the goods travel from point A to point B.